Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're talking about a child actor who was part of one of the most iconic TV families of all time, Ken Weatherwax, or as most of you probably know him, Pugsley from the Addams Family. But have you ever wondered what happened to him after the TV show? Well, that's where the story gets interesting and a little heartbreaking. So here's the deal. Ken Weatherwax didn't just fall into showbiz. He was basically born into it. His aunt was Ruby Keeler, a big-time Broadway star. His uncle owned the original Lassie, and his half-brother was Joey DeVieira, who played the part of Porky in the original Lassie series. And Ken? Well, he was just 9 years old when he landed the part of Pugsley, and for those of you who grew up in the 60s, you know the Addams Family was huge, and he became a household name overnight. But here's the catch. Once the show ended, it wasn't all fun and games. Despite the show's success, ABC decided to cancel the Addams Family because there was another TV show on rival network CBS that was just way too similar, and they thought the public would get burned out on this type of show. Ironically, CBS must have been thinking the exact same thing because the Munsters would suffer the same fate after its second season as well. After the Addams Family, Ken was offered several other acting jobs, but the parts were always that of the little fat kid who ended up being the joke. Ken himself talked about how difficult it was to shake that identity. He wanted to keep acting, but everyone still saw him as that mischievous little kid from the Addams Mansion. Because of this typecasting, he decided not to accept offers of those types of roles and decided to just return to normal life and go back to public school. However, Ken found this more difficult than he had anticipated and ended up bouncing around from school to school before finally deciding to drop out and enter the armed services at just 17 and a half years old after getting his mother's permission to do so. So from 1972 through 1974, he served in the U.S. Army Cavalry as a combat recovery specialist. He eventually left the Army and worked behind the scenes in Hollywood, but his battles weren't just professional. He struggled with depression, financial problems, and just trying to find his place in the world. This is something we don't talk about enough. What happens to child stars after the fame dies down? It's not always a pretty picture, and Ken's story was a tough one. But in the 1990s, there was a bit of a silver lining. Nostalgia for the Addams Family was huge again, and Ken became a regular at fan conventions. It was like he finally got to feel the love and appreciation from fans again, and he leaned into it. Now I love this part of Ken's story because it shows just how much people still cared about him, even after all those years. Ken really embraced the fans, and for many, that's how they'll remember him. Not just as Pugsley, but as the guy who showed up, shook hands, and made you feel like part of the Addams Family. Ken's life wasn't without struggles. He also dealt with heart problems, and in 2014, at the age of just 59, Ken Weatherwax passed away. But despite the tough times, his legacy lives on through the joy he brought to so many as Pugsley. It's a reminder that fame doesn't always last, but the impact you leave on people does. Ken Weatherwax may have been typecast as Pugsley, but he'll forever be a part of TV history. I've got to say, Ken Weatherwax will always have a special place in my heart for bringing such a beloved character to life. What about you? How many of you were fans of the Addams Family? And do you have any favorite memories of Pugsley from that iconic show? I look forward to reading your comments. Also, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel, where I mostly talk about the music, TV shows, and movies that I loved while growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. As always, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and have a great day.